This is Katherine Glader of the Glader to Hear That podcast, and today I'm here with my dad, Tom Glader.
Hi.
To talk about how everything is sales, and that means figuring out how to sell things. So the first question I have for my dad to start us off, and FYI, he calls me Katie, so we're just going to go with that. Dad, what is the hardest thing about sales?
The hard thing about sales is that if whoever you report to, that person is rarely ever satisfied with the results. They always want more. Need to sell more of something and reach the goals that they've put there for you. And you also get a lot of rejection. You have to deal with a lot of no thank yous and move on to the next customer.
And it's not always no thank you. It's no, get out of my yard because you're a schwanns guy. But
yeah, fortunately we don't deal with that kind of issue, but others might. So
yeah.
But yeah.
Or other salesmen in other fields might get. I know I got hung up on when I was calling in my previous sales role and things like that.
Yeah, and there's always room for improvement. And you have to look at it as you have to be pretty tenacious in order to be happy with what you're doing and to enjoy it.
Yeah, and that goes for like any kind of sales role, whether you are your own boss or not. Like in your own small business, you could always have more customers on your website. I could always have more people coming in the door that I'm talking to at the companies I've worked for, things like that, right?
True. It's important, I suppose, to never be satisfied yourself with the status quo and always want more. And then the question is, how do you get more of what you're looking for?
How do you improve your sales to get that goal is what you're saying, right?
True. The funny phrase I heard a long time ago is, a person said, I know that half of my marketing works, I just don't know which half. So
oh gosh.
The challenge might be is to try and figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's a lot of analytics actually, and it's funny how that does work into sales, and it speaks to how everything is sales and how it works together with marketing and how it works for any business, anywhere, at any time, and in all parts of life, really. But what is the best thing about sales, though, in your opinion?
The best thing, I suppose, in what I currently do is I see the smile as
your happy schwanns customers.
Yeah, it puts a smile on their face that when they see me bring the food to them, something they want, and I get the interaction with people, knowing that I'm bringing them something that they want.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny how people don't always know what they want in sales, though, but you kind of have to, that's part of selling people on your product is, hey, in your case, as a schwanns delivery driver, we have great ice cream, we have great food, I enjoy it with my family, this is what I think you'd like, and I kind of had to do that in my sales role. Hey, we have this product, I know your business needs it, in obviously more sales-friendly terms, but that's the idea you're communicating.
True, and a lot of that is built on the whole concept of trust.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That customers typically will only buy a product based on the trust factor that they see in that product or that person.
Or service.
Or service, true. So it's important to develop a high degree of trust.
Yeah, they have to trust you that you're selling good product. They have to trust that the software is good, and like a software as a service business like I was selling. I think even like a nonprofit has to sell to donors and volunteers, or a church has to sell like that they have good preaching, a good anything with really a nonprofit too, that what they're providing is truly valuable to the people who are involved, and that it's worth spending your time and or money, or even contributing your resources to that specific thing that you have to sell people on. So as we're talking about your schwanns job, I want to know what your favorite schwanns item is.
Maybe the fully cooked bacon.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, and what number is that? I find this amazing that my dad knows all these numbers.
Number 811.
Okay, 811 is the one to order, folks. So even though I know this, I'm going to mention it for listeners that I worked at a startup in sales for 9 months to the day. I struggled a lot, but holy cats, did I learn a lot. One of the main lessons I learned was how I could go about selling and talking to people, not just for that job, but for the future, and what communication looks like in that realm. What marketers often get wrong before they do sales work, because marketing, as you know, and advertising is my passion. But I noticed the things the marketing department at the job I mentioned was like, and I was like, oh no, this doesn't communicate things right for the sales team. And that was not really their fault, but it was not having that sales perspective, I suppose, because I was the one talking to customers every day, and this is what I heard from them and what they needed to hear, things like that. So what corporate and marketing... Nope, I got lost in my question. I'm curious, do you think it's easier to sell to consumers or other businesses? There's my question.
Do I think it's easier to sell consumers versus businesses?
Because you've done both, right?
I've done a little bit of both. It's been easier to sell to consumers.
I agree.
Maybe one factor that makes it a little easier is you don't have layers of people to deal with. The homeowner is the decision maker, versus in a company there can be levels of decision makers.
And sometimes you don't know which level you have to talk to.
Correct.
Yeah. So when you're going up to your customer's door, it's like you're talking to the person usually, unless it's their kid answers the door. Right. But for me, I guess and in any other sales job where you're calling a business, I had to ask for a manager, and they were always wondering, oh, who are you, and all of that. So maybe that's a slight more barrier to entry there. So let's see here. What was your first sales job?
The first sales job that I can remember was, I think, in grade school when I went through the neighborhood. We lived on a lake, and I was selling maps of the lake to homeowners. I don't recall if I was very successful at it, but I did have the interest and desire and boldness to knock on doors at a young age. So little did I know, I seemed to have some of an extroverted personality even back then.
Have you always been extroverted, do you think?
I didn't really think of myself as being extroverted, but looking back, maybe I was more than I realized. More of a kind of a tenacious attitude of never wanting to give up, and seeing a product that I liked and feeling that others might like it too. So if I feel that way, others might enjoy that, whatever that product is, and that can go along with a lot of things in life, that whatever it is that we like, that we want to tell others about, whether you're being paid to do it or not. We're all kind of dealing with
convincing people of the value of our passions, so to speak.
Correct. That takes on can take on a sales attitude, whether you realize it or not. And so you have to kind of develop that passion and ability to sway others towards your way of thinking in a good way.
Convince others of the value, I think, to a large extent as well.
Value and importance of something that you like, and hope that others will like it too.
I like that. Going back to like extroversion, I know most people say I'm very much of an extrovert now, and I would largely agree with that. But what you know, and those who have known me for a while know, is that I was very shy as a kid, very shy, especially compared to my sister Becky. I grew up clinging to you and Mom. I was pretty much scared of everything in life, I feel like. Now I would argue very different, and I think you brought that extroversion out in me quite a bit by challenging me and things like that, and I'm largely grateful. It was very hard in like middle school and high school, like, oh, Dad wants me to try everything, this is terrifying, but I definitely took that with me, and I still like use those lessons to this day, I think, in like sharing my passions, and in my sales job, being able to talk to people more effectively. And I think that goes along with what you learned as a communications major in college, and I was a marketing, and I think that all fit together really well as part of my learning process. Wanted to let y'all know about Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's free. It's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcasts right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, in fact. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thanks, y'all. Let's see here. What else did I have for you? I know you try to fill the gaps of what you think you missed as you were growing up for us, and I think there's good balance in that. I'm sure I'll do the same. I'm sure every kid in history has done the same to a different extent. But what is one thing you wish your parents would have one activity you wish your parents would have put you in, or opportunity as a kid? For example, I'll share mine, but if I could have been dancing as like a 5-year-old, like taking dance classes like as a toddler, oh my gosh, I feel like I would be so much better at swing and more prepared for one of my passions. And you had no way of knowing that, but what is that thing for you that you think would have helped you out later in life?
I probably wish that my parents had been more supportive and pushed me a little bit more towards going out for team sports. As I look back, the idea of being on a team in any sport teaches you valuable lessons about working with others and developing your own skills. And as you use your skills in cooperation with your teammates to try and win the game, you learn how to work with others, and you're all kind of hopefully on the same page with the same goal in mind. And
I think that goes into sales teams as well.
True. Those characteristics can be applied to the workforce, and so that carries over very well.
Interesting. And I know you and Mom did put me in like soccer in 3rd grade. Not my thing, but definitely still fun and a good lesson in that team atmosphere. I think tennis for me is an interesting example through both our lives, where it kind of starts out as a sport on your own, because I always have liked playing singles more myself. I'm not quite sure about you, but I think it's interesting how things like that are a team sport. And I think that also speaks to sales, where I had to get my own sales, I had to play my own tennis games, but then you're playing and selling for your whole team, and you still all have to be on the same page, because you're all those points are working together, all your sales numbers are working together. Do you see a connection there?
Sure. In most sales jobs, while you're working towards your own sales goals, you're typically part of a larger group, and your sales goals tend to also benefit other people as a larger sales goal. So you don't want to let those people down, and hopefully they don't want to let you down. So while you're working for yourself, you're also working for others, and it's very much typically a team environment.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic in that way. And I think actually both of our minimal, admittedly, theater experiences play to that as well, where you have to know your own lines, but you still have to, like, I mean, to stretch it even a little farther, you have to sell people on the character you're playing. I mentioned that just because we both do have that experience, and you did push me in theater growing up a little bit. And I think it helped now that I can speak in front of people and doing things like starting a podcast, not to be too cheesy. What do you think are some unique sales experience that you see, like, other people in the world having, or that you've had yourself? Like, for me, I think church is a place where people don't really think sales, and it's kind of a weird word for it, or even politics, where you have to sell your ideas to others. You have to kind of convince and, argue in a good way that what you are a part of and what you know is what is best, and, like, here's why and whatnot.
Another environment that I was in that incorporated sales that isn't necessarily thought of as sales is I worked in the hospitality industry at a resort. And as people would call to inquire about the lodging, I was responsible to describe what we offered and help them make their decisions to stay at the resort that I worked at versus
go elsewhere.
Right. Everybody has a competitor, and in this case, there was other lodging options they could choose from, and so I had to point out the benefits of staying at the resort that I worked at, and that involved sales. It was more over the phone.
Yeah.
But that's not. It wasn't. It was selling more of a service and an experience. It's hard to sell experiences versus maybe a tangible item that you can hold.
Okay. Versus, like, at the gift shop where they can see, feel, touch, interact with product or whatnot. And I would say the same goes for, like, software, admittedly. Very different realm, but still, like, I can't feel it, I can't touch it, I can't hold it. Like, that can be a bit of a hurdle, so to speak. Let's see.
Sometimes creating and identifying and explaining the value of something is very different depending on what it is you're trying to sell, whether it's an object or an experience or a service, will dictate a variety of different concepts of value to
and outcomes.
Correct.
Yeah, knowing the value of something definitely helps selling it. Knowing the value of what you believe in, knowing the value of what you're selling, knowing the value of really anything in your life is what helps you convince others of its value subsequently, I think. And that's an important lesson for anyone, not just in sales, but otherwise in their life. And me as a marketer, like, knowing the value and how to communicate that through not just selling, but also marketing. And people might find it surprising. I don't know, maybe not. But even though I was in sales and I learned from it, I am not a salesperson. Really, I had some successes, but there's definitely a certain kind of person who thrives in different kinds of sales environments. And I know you said you like your sales job and the way you get to go around in your own truck, you get to interact in person with your customers, and I had to sit at a desk all day. Do you think people can see different, like, atmospheres for sales, and I have different success levels in those different
Yeah,
atmospheres?
I suppose one of the factors that I've seen similar in all my different sales jobs is I work on my own somewhat. I'm independent. I like the independence. But along with that independence that I'm afforded comes a lot of responsibility. That if I'm allowed to work on my own, I also am expected to deliver and be tenacious and responsible for producing and selling while I'm on my own. So it goes kind of hand in hand that these different sales jobs I've been in are an atmosphere of independence but responsibility.
Yeah. As we finish up here, I like something you had told me before we started recording. Nobody wants to be sold, but people want to buy. I learned this, I think it was actually after I was laid off my sales role due to COVID last year. I think that's really interesting, and it's largely true for most people. People love buying things. They love getting, in my case, a good deal. They love getting the next best thing, but people will hang up on you even if they end up loving the thing you're selling. At least in my case, that was true. In many other cases, it's true. People want to buy good food, but they don't always want to see a salesman, which is a really interesting dynamic. The one way I want to turn that on its head is that as like an advertising and marketing passionate person, I actually like looking at advertisements, but some of those things I would never want to buy, which is, I know, turning it on its head. What do you have any thoughts on that at all further?
Nothing comes to mind.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I know it's weird. Do you think that's weird that I have both those outlooks?
I mean, to some degree, we're all a little maybe hesitant to buy something that we see initially. We want to maybe do our research and convince ourselves that something we see advertised is worth buying. We want to be smart.
Do our own research, not want to have somebody tell us, perhaps.
Correct.
Cool. Well, thanks, Dad, for talking with me on this subject.
You're welcome.
I hope that is helpful for everyone listening. I tried to sum up with here, like, what I've learned from sales, what my dad has taught me over time, and how I think it translates to other parts of my life. So that was largely my goal here. And thanks for listening, and feel free to follow or subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. And thanks again.